So the month is over, which means it's time for a wrap up. Hi, hello, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Alex, and today is the June 2023 wrap up, which means we're going to talk about the books that I read in June. If you watched last week's episode, I told you guys that June was like a very difficult month, and yes, it was an extremely difficult month for me. And we're just carrying on into July because July opened up with probably one of the worst weeks I've had this year to date, definitely. So, but the good news is we got good news today, so hopefully things are gonna like get better, like there's an upward trend or something. Something has to give, like things have to get better, basically. I had a difficult time reading in June, like feeling motivated and then having time, and things just kind of got really crazy on our end. And I didn't really love anything in June. I had a really difficult reading month. There were a few good books, and then there were a few that just really didn't hit for me. So, yeah. Make sure you hit all the buttons down below so you know when I'm posting. I post every week, and all we do on this channel is talk about books. So if you like listening to people talk about books, here I am every week doing just that for you. Let's not waste any more time. Let's get into it. So June was Pride Month, and so I really wanted to make sure I read at least one rainbow book this month. All of my maybes for June were rainbow books. I did have some problems with availability, and then I just had trouble finding time to read, like I said. I ended up doing 4 books in June, and 2 of them were rainbow books, so let's start with those. So the first book I read was Love and Other Disasters by Anita Kelly. Like, I read this so quick out of the gate in June that it almost feels like a lifetime ago that I read it. This was really sweet, like, and I really liked the rep in this book, but this is definitely not the type of book that I read because I think it kind of falls under rom-com. But yeah, let's talk about it. So we have 2 main characters. Sorry, names are not happening today, but they end up on a like cooking competition show, and we have our female main character that is recovering from like a really nasty divorce, and she feels kind of lost in her life, and like this cooking show is like a really amazing opportunity for her to kind of shift her perspective a little bit and really like dig deep and find out what she really wants to do, where she wants to go. This is kind of like a pinnacle moment for her being on this show, and she's really just trying to like soak everything up from it. Then we have our other main character who is, I think they would like technically consider themselves trans non-binary, and they've always known what they want to do, and they're here to win, and they want to, you know, use their identity to sort of beacon for maybe other adults and children that are struggling with their sexual and gender identity and want to be kind of a pillar for people to look up to that are struggling. And their journey in this book is honestly like just so sweet. But of course, like this kind of turns, this sort of polarizes the rest of the cast for the cooking competition, and so it kind of becomes this statement piece that the like the directors of the show use for publicity. So there is a lot of like gay pride, gay rights propaganda type stuff happening in this book, if that makes sense. Like the director's like utilizing this character. I wish I could remember their name. I'm so sorry. I'm just like totally blanking on it. But basically using them to get ratings because of how they identify and who they are. So there is kind of like this kind of seediness to this part of the story, which I think some people could probably identify with a little bit. At its heart, this is just a beautiful little romance story, and I laughed so much through it. Like, Anita Kelly really nailed the personalities of these two characters. Like, they were not flat, they were not one-dimensional. Like, she really put so much into this book, so much into these characters, that I just felt like I knew them by the end, and they each just struck such a joy within me to read. So I really loved that Anita Kelly put the work in and really made something fantastic. Um, so a few issues. I didn't love the pace, especially, okay, this is gonna sound really hypocritical, like, especially at the beginning and at the end. At the beginning, we were just kind of like slogging a little bit, and I couldn't really figure out if Kelly wanted us to focus on the romance of the story or on the cooking competition, because I really wasn't sure which one was at the forefront, and I felt like it was a really neck and neck type of thing throughout the book, and I didn't love that. I would have loved to have known a little sooner which direction it was pushing ultimately. And then at the end, I just felt like there was probably about 4 chapters in there that I didn't need, that were just sort of like repetitive or time consuming. Like, it was just pushing the timeline along, but it wasn't really giving us anything new. Overall, I really liked this book. Like I said, the characters are just so well done. I think the dynamics in this book are great. I think the representation in this book is great. This is probably the first book I've read where there was a non-binary main character. Like, I've read a lot of like non-binary side characters or secondary characters, but it was like so refreshing to get one that was, the main character was non-binary, and I just loved that. The representation was great. We got lots across the spectrum on here, and it was just wonderful. It was wonderful. I ended up giving it 4 stars because of, some pace issues that I had, but overall this was a really great book, and I'm really glad that I decided to read it. The next book I read in June was Love Beyond Body, Space, and Time, and this is a Indigenous LGBTQ plus sci-fi anthology, so it's a collection of short stories. This was terrific. I mean, obviously there were some stories that like weren't my favorite, but there were a lot of really, really great shorts in here, and some of them are really, really short, like maybe 2-3 pages. So it was extremely easy to read. It was very enjoyable. I think that if you're wanting to sort of broaden your horizons when it comes to Indigenous culture, Indigenous like teachings and learnings, and just trying to learn how to be more empathetic or understanding towards that community, I think this was just beautifully done. Like, it was just so accessible and wonderful, and I loved the little stories. There was a lot of Two-Spirit rep in this book, which I absolutely loved. I can't remember the person's name, but whoever ultimately put this together, they wrote something at the beginning of the book that I really think everyone needs to read. It talks a lot about how different each tribe is from each other, and that some tribes are extremely accepting of Two-Spirit or queer individuals, and some tribes really are not. And I think there was an important lesson here that a lot of people forget about or never learn about, but the first communities that needed decolonization were Indigenous communities. And like all communities, decolonization takes time, and some of these communities have not gotten there yet. And I think it's important to understand that it's still happening. It's still, a work in progress. It's still, there's Indigenous people that feel like they don't belong in, dare I say, regular society, where they feel kind of ostracized or they don't fit in, and they don't fit in with their Indigenous communities because they're still working through a lot of these issues that colonization caused. I think there's an important message there that not everybody understands, and I think it was something important. thought it was important for me to read. So I think it's important for a lot of people to read. This was extremely accessible. I really love the stories, and I think that each one of these authors contributed something really amazing. I gave it 5 stars, even though there were a few stories that I didn't love. Like, I loved this. The next book I read in June was Sweet Temptation by Maya Banks. Okay, this is kind of where we had hit a stumbling block. I ended up doing this on audiobook, and I can say with tons of confidence that this is probably the worst audiobook I have heard in my life. I did not like the narrator. Full stop. I didn't like the narrator. It was a struggle to enjoy this book. It was a struggle to get through it. I didn't like the voices that she did. I didn't like the intonation. I didn't like the pace. The volume didn't work for me either. Like, it was very, very quiet, and then it'd be very, very loud. I had so many issues with this audiobook that it almost made the book unenjoyable. And then when we get into the content of the book, I didn't actually love the content of the book either. I struggled through the audio just to ultimately decide that I didn't love the book either. It was a struggle. It was just a struggle. So this is the 4th book in the Sweet series by Maya Banks, and this is a BDSM series. So it is very erotic, very graphic, and it centers around this group of friends that live in, I think this is Houston area, and they all kind of frequent this erotic BDSM nightclub type thing. Okay, so this one focused around Micah and him meeting back up with someone, a woman from his past that he ends up having feelings for, and then very immediately despising the idea of having feelings for her. This is it dual perspective? I wouldn't say it's like traditionally dual perspective, like the I don't know, because I didn't see it on the page. Like, I just can't really remember if we did like true dual perspective where it was like, oh, this chapter, like, it has their name at the top. Like, I can't remember if it does that or not. I'm gonna say no. So, but we are getting both perspectives of this. This is highly erotic, highly graphic, and it's very S&M. I would say there is some light sub-dom play in here, but like nothing very concrete. There's no titles or anything really. So I would say it's very light. Lots and lots and lots of impact play in this book, and lots of anal. So if you don't like reading that, just skip this, because let me tell you, it's everywhere in this novel. There are a few scenes with multiple partners that I think were done pretty well. Like I said, if I had read this, I probably would have enjoyed it a little more, because I just didn't love the narrator. I do think that the erotic scenes were written very well. I do like Maya Banks a lot, and I like her writing. And so I did like this book. My problem was I had major pace issues, especially at the beginning, because we opened this book very hot and heavy, very like high expectation, right? And then there was a lull for about 12 chapters. And in those 12 chapters, we were repeating the same types of dialogue, the same problem. We weren't moving forward. We were just sort of recycling this same roadblock over and over and over again. And I was like, if we spend much more time chatting about this, I might lose my mind. When we finally stopped chatting about it, we did get some great scenes, but then like the ending, I was really just upset by that point that she chose to kind of end it that way. There was a trope thrown in at the very last minute of the book that I absolutely detest, because I'm a grown adult and I just don't appreciate it anymore. Me and my decrepit age, this is like, if this trope is in a book, I will always complain about it because I just don't see the point. Um, I won't tell you it because I don't want to ruin the story for you or whatever. Maybe I'll like make an entire post about like some of my least favorite tropes or whatever. But yeah, one of my least favorite tropes is at the end of this book, and it really just made me angry because it did nothing but add shock value when there honestly did not need to be any shock value at all. There didn't need to be, and it added absolutely nothing in my perfectly humble opinion. So yeah, what I ended up rating it, I ended up rating it 3 stars, which I hated doing. Because here's the thing, I didn't hate this book. And usually my 3 stars are reserved for I didn't like it, but. And I didn't dislike this book. So I would say, if we were going to get like technical about it, I would say this was like a very high 3 or a very low 4. Because I just couldn't give it the 4 stars. Like, it was not a 4-star book for me. But 3 stars feels too low. So it's somewhere in between. I know that doesn't help like anything. But yeah, it's somewhere in between. I just really didn't love it. There was just a lot of issues. The parts I did like, I really liked. And the parts I disliked a lot. There was just not very much middle ground for me. But yeah, am I going to give up on the series? No, because there was a character that we met in this book, and I was super excited because they gave this character their own book later. So I will continue this series, but if I'm going to make sure that this narrator is not reading it, because I will not do the audiobook if this narrator is doing it again, because it was not good. If anything, if you're going to do this book, don't do the audiobook and just read it old school like a peasant and call it a day. Okay, the last book I'm going to talk about today is Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. I read this from my book club, and I will say with confidence that it was a decent book. Did I love it? I loved the idea of it, but did I like love it? No. So, premise. We have a scientist that all of a sudden he's living his life as a professor. He's got a wife, he's got a kid, everything's great. And then he wakes up in a room, like a hospital room that he doesn't recognize, surrounded by other people congratulating him on a job well done. And he comes to find out that he has left his life and migrated into another life. So, this is basically a multiverse book. If you like the multiverse, that is what this is about. I would say it was a really great sci-fi book. It was technical enough that there were parts where I was like, I don't really know what's going on, but I'll just go with it. But then it wasn't so technical that I couldn't follow at all. So I was able to follow along with it just fine. I did have some questions that I just really didn't think got answered. But that may just be me and my not smart brain not being able to comprehend what was happening with the story. As far as sci-fi goes, it wasn't too technical that it was hard to enjoy, but it was technical enough that you felt like it was real, like it was plausible, like it was explained enough that I could follow along. Basically, it's this man's journey through the multiverse to get back to his original life that he left. So why didn't it work for me? Alex, why didn't you love it? I don't really know. There wasn't really anything technically wrong with it. I think I just got bored with the idea of the book. I got bored with the endless mission of the book. And I just thought at some point, like, maybe we would completely overhaul the whole idea and go a different way. And we really didn't. And so it was sort of a monotonous idea. Also, the ending, she kind of like left it on a little bit of a cliffhanger, which I didn't love. It was more like of an ambiguous ending where it's like up to the interpretation of the reader to decide what comes next. I don't love stuff like that. because I just feel like they were lazy with it. That's like extremely judgmental of me to say, and I'm fully aware of that. But yeah, to me, it feels like lazy writing a little bit. I know not everybody feels that way. I know there's lots of people that love ambiguous endings, but I am not really one of those people. Also, just like, I feel like we've just been seeing so much of the multiverse just like everywhere. Like, tons of movies are about the multiverse, and like a lot of the literature I've been reading this year and the years prior have had multiverse themes in it, and I'm just tired of the multiverse idea because it's just now it's getting to the point where like everybody's playing this card, and I'm like, can we have an original idea? I do love the idea of the multiverse because I just do, like, that fascinates me. But yeah, like I said, I've just been seeing it so much everywhere now that I'm just sort of burnt out on the multiverse at the moment. It's just a personal problem that I'm having. So it didn't have anything to do with the book. That was like, it's clearly like a me problem because there's lots of people that love reading about the multiverse, and usually I do too. But yeah, I'm a little tired right now. Maybe in a couple months, like, the drive for the multiverse will come back for me and I will enjoy reading stuff like that. But right now, it's just not hitting very well for me. I ended up giving this 4 stars because, like I said, it was a really good book. I think the sci-fi was balanced really well because it wasn't only a sci-fi book. Like, it felt very thrillerish at some points, and it felt almost like a lost love story at other points in the book too. So it gets lots of points for being diverse in that, and that it wasn't just a strictly science fiction novel. But yeah, it does get a few knocks for some pacing issues, and yeah, just not being completely clear with the ending kind of knocked it down a little bit for me. Yeah, but if you like the multiverse and you like science fiction, this was definitely a good one. Okay, that's all I have for you guys today. I kind of sat here and talked for a long time. I'm very sorry. I always say, like, oh, this is gonna be a short one, but yeah, they never end up short because I just sit here and, like, prattle on for ages about books. So, yeah, sorry about that. Make sure you hit all the buttons down below so you know I'm posting. I post every week, and I don't think I've made my filming schedule for the rest of the summer, but I should probably do that. I definitely finalized my lineup for July a couple days ago, and I'm super excited about that. If you watched my post last week, the Maybe series, I was a little worried about my momentum for July because I've just been struggling with reading lately, but I think I picked some books that are going to kind of throw me back in. Now, if the books end up not being that great, that might just throw me back down. But I guess we'll just see how it shakes out. And yeah, that's all I have for you guys today. So I will see you guys next time. Bye!